321, hello and welcome to YQL Real Talk, and this is your monthly news and real estate digest so you can keep up to date with the local real estate and economy. Your hosts, like always, are Kurtis Hawkins and Brett Gurr from the Real Estate One team.
Hello.
At Real Broker. So before we get into some numbers, I have a couple articles that I pulled up that I thought were kind of interesting.
Okay.
So, not to scare everybody, but missed mortgage and credit payments in Canada hit pre-COVID highs. More than 1.26 million people missed a credit payment in quarter one of 2024. That's not homes, that's credit cards and other debt and whatever. But out of that, they're saying more than 34,000 Canadians missed a mortgage payment in quarter one of 2024, which is 23% higher than quarter one of 2023.
Yeah, that's unreal. I guess obviously money's tight with inflation, things are crunched and all that, but I guess it's kind of a testament to a little bit of a bubble that we're living in here in Lethbridge. I don't see a lot of people out of work. I don't see the unemployment.
It does, when you dig into a little bit deeper, they do say that like overall Canada's fine, but when you look at specifically Ontario and BC and their crazy housing markets, that's where it's coming from. I don't know how people afford $1 million mortgage for an apartment or whatever. The average home is like 1.3.
Yeah.
I don't know how you afford that.
When you're a waitress at the corner pub, you know, like it's wild. Yeah.
So this goes back to like 2 years ago when we were doing this podcast, and I said, once interest rate starts to rise, it's going to put a lot of pressure on those economies. Yeah. And I think that's going to force even more people to move out this way in Alberta, like you've already seen. And I think these pressures will just put even more pressure on people moving out here. So
yeah, and I think it certainly has been doing that. There's been lots of people coming this way, and everybody seems to be finding work. There was one instance that I knew of, client of mine. He was in a certain field. He wasn't able to find work out here. He ended up having to go back, but that's extremely low. And he was in a certain field that Lethbridge does not have a lot of. You know, and
in Lethbridge does have. We've talked about this before, but Lethbridge does have one of the lowest unemployment rates in all of Alberta.
For sure.
Actually, the country too.
Yeah, exactly.
Alberta has a very low unemployment rate usually, and then out of that, Lethbridge has even the most unemployment, which is awesome.
Yeah, you bet.
Then the other one here is Canadian real estate, the most affordable cities in the country. So according to Royal LePage did a survey. I couldn't find the Royal LePage survey, but they said that the most affordable city in Canada was Thunder Bay, followed by St. John, and in third was Red Deer, someplace in Quebec, and then Edmonton. And of course, Lethbridge doesn't make the list because nobody cares about Lethbridge or talks about Lethbridge.
Exactly. Which is part of the reason why Lethbridge always has one of the lowest real estate pricing, because it's for that reason. Nobody cares. We're just here flying under the radar. And so that's definitely, it's starting to get out.
They used a number. The number that they used was the percent of household monthly income required for mortgage payments. So for whatever reason, in St. John, it was 25% of your household monthly income was required for a mortgage payment. And in Edmonton, for example, it was 28.9. So I would really like to know what that number is. It's not easy for us to calculate that.
Right.
So got to do some more digging to figure that one out and how they did it specifically. But I know Lethbridge would be, like, if not, it would be top 5, 100%.
Yeah, I would certainly think so. I'm sure a lot of that is based on the income and the household medium income that they're getting as well too. But yeah, interesting. Lethbridge would probably be in there. Maybe for some reason, maybe they didn't forget about Lethbridge, and for some reason it isn't in that list. But I doubt it. I don't believe it either, because I don't understand how Edmonton could be less expensive to live than Lethbridge. That doesn't.
Yeah, their housing prices are certainly similar, but I don't think, like, when you factor in commute times and just living in a big city is usually more expensive and all that kind of stuff. I can't see it being cheaper.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
There too, so utilities be higher.
Interesting. Yeah. Exactly.
But that leads us, speaking of affordability, that leads us into the numbers for this month.
Okay.
And oh boy.
Yeah. Oh boy, is right.
I had to crack a root beer for this one.
I had to double check my numbers, and obviously we'll go through this, and I had to verify that I didn't mess something up. We're going to get into it. And there was one statistic that was very shocking to me. And I had to text it to you immediately, and we'll get into it. But so homes sold, we had past June, month of June was 206 homes sold.
June 2024.
Yes, June 2024. Last June of 2023 was 200. Yearly average is 155. So
floating around that same number as last year, a little bit more, which is fine.
Yeah.
That's nothing to panic about.
Yeah, no, everything kind of checks out right there. Past month for average days on market, 42 for the month of June. We saw an average day on market, which is extremely low because this time last year we were 58 days on market. So that is quick and fast.
Yep. That actually surprises me because do you remember what it was last month?
It was, I just recall, I think it was like 50, it was, I think 52, if I recall, last month.
And I'm surprised that it's 42 because to me, it kind of seems like everything was kind of slowing down a little bit. But
it didn't seem like that to me.
Just because, do you still running into lots of competing offers?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
As much as the month before?
In June, no. So right now things are kind of slowing down a little bit, but you got to remember that these numbers are reflecting
I
June, right?
No, but I felt like April, May, it was like you couldn't write an offer without everyone competing. And
True.
June kind of slowed down a little bit, and now July is even a little bit more, I think. But
I think July is slowing down a little bit more, which is pretty typical. Everybody, once school gets out, people are thinking holidays, things like that. It does typically slow down, so that's not
the numbers aren't saying
surprise.
So.
Well, this is June though, right? I guarantee you the numbers are going to be a little bit different come July for the July numbers, but I guess
they surprise me every month. So.
Yeah, they do. But it is always interesting to do this and just see these numbers on a month-to-month basis because,
it's always the number one question. How's the market?
Exactly.
Watch the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously we have our interpretation of how the market is, but until you look at the actual numbers, sometimes that interpretation kind of changes, right? 100%. So active homes on market in June saw 371. The year before that was 481. And average of 2023 was 426 last year. So again, low inventory. That seems to be
what was driving prices up. Which
exactly. Current, definitely the trend.
I think we must have touched on this before, but when you get very low inventory and there's only 370 homes on the market, about 150 of those for sure are going to be pending.
Yeah.
So there's only 200 homes to choose from in a city of 100,000+ people. So
definitely.
It's like when there's low supply, prices go up.
Yeah.
It gets to be more competition.
Yeah, it's the whole grade 8 basis of supply and demand, right? Yeah. So, and that brings us to our next one. This is the shocker for me. We hit all-time high
again
in the month of June. Well, we shattered it. Like, we didn't just beat it, like we shattered. Last month we were 379,000 for the average home sale price in Lethbridge. This month we broke 402,150, which, like, when I brought it up, I almost fell off my chair. Like, I had to text you immediately and was like, wow, like this is crazy. Like, we've typically seen incremental increases in that going up, but the month of June kind of blew it out of the water. And of course we always look into it. Well, did a couple of big places sell for $2 million? But
so we did look at, I just pulled it up here. Yeah. And there was a 1.6 that sold, and a $1.6 million one that sold, and a $1.05 million. And there was a handful, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that sold in the 800 range. 2 of those were actually ones that I sold.
Oh, so, nice.
Now that I see that one, I see.
Awesome.
2 in there that I sold in that $800,000 range. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 above 600, 700. Sorry. So it is for whatever reason the luxury market's on fire.
Yeah, the luxury market is moving a little bit, but I don't think we saw any staggering numbers in there that would have represented that. Honestly, I think, in my own opinion, where we're seeing that biggest boost is in that under 400,000 range, or because the market was just absolutely so competitive in there, and if you had a decent property that came out in that price range, they were going quick. Even 300, 350 range, they were moving quick, right?
100%.
Although, I guess we got one more statistic to get to. So I'll finish off.
Before we move on, I don't think we said what the last year's was. So 402 this year, and last year was 346. So that's how big of a flipping difference this is. That's why it's like, we probably sound like nerds, be like, look at these numbers.
Well, even 6 months ago, like, we were floating at 345 earlier 6 months ago in the fall. We've seen those numbers continually climb. So to see it at 402.
What I've also noticed too is it seems like the summer months, like spring and summer, is when you see the big price increases. Then they kind of level off for the year. And then next summer again, then they jump up. So it's always like, it sets like a baseline, then it kind of flatlines and a baseline.
Yeah. Well, and typically we do see, we normally see a bit of a slowdown come July. Personally, I seem to have a lot of people right now that are ready to list their home. 2 months ago, they weren't ready, whereas now they're like, yeah, let's do it. You've got a lot of listings coming up. Just our team in general has a lot of, you were saying Chelsea's spread pretty thin because she's got
taking the photos.
She's going everywhere doing photos. So, and that alone will kind of have a tendency to, kind of level off the market a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. But one more stat that we have was average list to sale percentage. So we saw June with 99.3, which that is very high. That is very high.
Typically we're at that 98%. Like last year.
Or even 97. Prior to that, year before was 98.1, and 97.40 is typically, your yearly average normally. So, it was definitely a seller's market in June. The places were flying, they were moving quick, and it was wild. So and I guess I end up speaking to the other members on our team too. Like, they're like, everyone in June, early June especially, still running into those competing offers. You have to go over ask. I think I've seen the most, like this year, that I've seen the most, how do I say this? Not the most places going over ask, but going over ask. I've seen, like, you typically, I put it this way. So typically when you have to go over ask in Lethbridge, it was like, if you go $5,000 over, you're usually okay. This year it's like, you got this one.
Not even close. Like, we've seen 25, like we've lost.
Yes. I've lost at 25,000 over asking. You get your people to go 25,000 over asking, and they look at you and they're like, are we good, Brett? What are the odds? And you're like, I'm pretty sure we're good, guys. Like, I don't think, I don't think we need to stress. We should have this, and then you lose. And
I had that on a suited place where it was priced well. There was like 5 offers, so we did the same thing. It was like, let's do 25. I could see it being worth like the 25 over that we were at.
Right.
I was like, after that, we're just chasing it. So if you want to push it a little bit further, like, it's probably a good idea. But it's a tough thing, because that's like, do you go higher? Because you might be paying slightly over for it now, but next year, that same house can cost you another $15,000 apparently.
Exactly. How many people did you sell a place to a year or 2 years ago? You went into competition and they bought it, and my gut feeling was like, ooh, they paid too much. Well, a year and a half later, it looks like a bargain.
The way I always like to frame it too is like, let's say we're competing on an offer, or competing on a house and competing offers, and I tell them that they should be at 15,000 over. They only want to do 10. I'm going to say, how bad do you want this house? Like, is this the one? We've looked at a ton. Is this the one? And they say yes. I'm like, okay, how long are you going to live in the house?
Yeah.
I said, well, this is at least 10 years. I'm like, in 10 years, are you going to remember if you went another 5,000 over or another 5,000
Absolutely.
No.
No, not one bit.
It sucks when you're doing it because you're like, oh, I just want a deal. But
yeah, exactly. That's a great psychology touch. I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna phrase that a little bit myself and use that a bit. So
well, I do it the same way. Like when we didn't build this, but we got like into the house and business that we're in now.
Right.
We didn't build it, but we signed the contract early enough that we could add some things on. And it's like, you want to be cheap when you want to do it like frugally when you're buying it. And we did like
of course,
2 or 3 upgrades. And like, again, in 10 years, when you're doing like a $5,000 upgrade, you're like, ooh, damn, that sucks. And then in 10 years, it's going to be like, damn, like I'm used the, we did it. Here, that example is my.
That
steam
reminds me,
shower.
I'm giving that steam shower a burn after this.
Well, that's what it was. So basically, it was the steam shower, and Chelsea was like, "I can't believe you're spending the money on that." And I've used it like in the winter, like 2 or 3 times a day. Like I get great use out of it.
Oh yeah.
And in 10 years, I'm going to be like, every time I turn that on, it costs me like $2 or something.
Exactly.
So it's like if you're going to use it, you're going to be there a long time. Just invest in it. So
definitely, yeah, you bet. So I guess overall market. So we typically do this just based on the market, but let's do it based on buyers versus sellers.
Sure.
So buyer's market, what's your take? How is the buyer's market looking? Obviously reflecting June, but moving forward as well, what's your take on where things are going in the new month?
Well, with the new listings coming on, like we're seeing a lot of new listings lately. So it should alleviate the low inventory that we have. So it should make it a little bit more relaxed for buyers. Right. You're not running into competing offers and you got to go see it today. Make your decision today. I say that, but like the last 3 months have just been crazy. So
we have been fooled.
You should still, like for buyers, you should still have your ducks in a row and be pre-approved, get the pre-approval letter.
Yes.
And like be ready when you find the right one. But I'm still hopeful that it'll be a little bit more relaxed and not so chaotic.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. I definitely think that June was a little bit chaotic for that, but moving into July, seems to be a lot more listings coming on the market, and that's pretty typical for July. And I think that it is kind of going to alleviate the crazy madness that buyers were like. There were places you were going to that first day on market and there were literally 7 agents lined up.
There were some times where they'd be like,
so
the listing agent would tell me, don't put the key back in the lockbox, just hand it to the next realtor.
And people weren't even booking times. They would just show up and you're like,
the place will be open. It's like the place will be open from 6 to 9.
So exactly in. So I think we're probably not going to see as much of that. That's going to be definitely cooled off a little bit moving into July. That being said, it's still a hot market, but I definitely think that from the listing side of it, from the buyer side of it, it's going to be easier for a buyer, and from the listing side of it, I just think we're going to have to be a little bit more careful with your pricing, your marketing, things like that, because just the influx of new listings coming on, which typically, and maybe I've got a false sense of it. No,
I think if you're a seller, when there's more listings out there, there's more competition. So you got to compete more against your neighbor or the house that's similar 2 blocks down or whatever, right? So you just got to really dig into what I was doing my listing presentations as we go over what's recently sold, like in the last 90 to 180 days. And then after we look at those, and we'll say, okay, now what's our competition? Right.
Yes.
So you really got to dig into those. And if there's 5 houses with the exact same layout on your street, well, what
are the odds of you asking $20,000 more, right?
Unless what are the features that we have that they don't, or they do that we have, and then we can come to an agreement on what a good price is.
Exactly. Okay. Overall, same thing. I definitely think buyer market is cooling off a bit. Not quite as stressful as it was before. And listing market, we'll see how it all pans out. So
and I guess the other thing I will say for both buyers and sellers going into the future, I don't think that $400,000 average list price will stay above 400 next month.
I would be shocked if we're above 400 next podcast, next market update.
So
but
stay tuned.
Stay tuned, and I guess I'm interested because honestly, that was wild. I'm still in shock over it.
I know last, other than my last. The last thumbnail I did for the podcast, all the other ones are like Lethbridge broke a record. Now I got to make another one.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding.
So
yeah, and it's just like, okay, yeah, whatever, Kurtis, another broken record.
I know.
Sure, hey, yeah, keeps happening. Yeah, okay, cool.
We'll just make it. Lethbridge broke another record.
Yeah,
but,
anything else? I think
that's it for me.
Okay, perfect.
Alrighty.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this podcast and want to see what happens next month in the market, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah, I know I'm interested.
Okay.
Talk to you then, guys.
Bye.